So good evening, everyone. You can hear me at the back, no? Great. Yeah. So I am Kavita Isvaran. I am a faculty member at the Center for Ecological Sciences at the Indian Institute of Science. So I'm basically a behavioral ecologist. So my students and I are interested in understanding why we see a diversity of solutions to common problems. We are particularly interested in problems related to mating decisions, reproductive decisions, life history traits, and sexual selection. So what I hope to do today is to talk about a line of research that we are currently very excited about. So, I think all of you are familiar that if you go out into the natural world, you'll sometimes see these really bizarre, striking traits. Traits, that seem to be very elaborate, perhaps costly, and don't seem to really make much sense from a survival point of view. So, long tail streamers or this long sword here and this swordfish, striking color patterns which attract predators, and so on. So, as you know, Darwin proposed the theory of sexual selection to explain these kinds of seemingly costly, elaborate, exaggerated traits. So he proposed that such elaborate characters, even though they seem to carry a survival cost, could evolve if they provide an advantage which certain individuals have over other individuals of the same sex and species in exclusive relation to reproduction. That is, traits that give you a mating advantage can evolve. And we've had decades and decades of very successful research on such traits and the evolution of such traits. We now know that weapons can evolve because they give you an advantage in competition, in direct contests with other individuals for access to mates. Ornaments, tail streamers, color patterns, costly displays can evolve because of the advantage it gives you in terms of being compared and selected by members of the other sex. Now, most of the work till recently has been on male traits in males, and there are a couple of reasons for this. So first, theory predicts that given a range of ecological conditions, including the types of investments that males and females might make, in many animal societies, females are the rarer sex. So even if you have a population where the adult sex ratio may be female biased, the operational sex ratio, that is at any particular point in time for a breeding event, the ratio of receptive females to males tends to be male biased, and therefore we expect that males compete for the rarer sex. Another explanation has been the Bateman gradient, and the idea here is that if we look at whether mating multiply pays off to males and females, so how does fertility or the number of offspring gained increase with the number of mates? And Bateman, in a series of experiments with Drosophila, suggested that for males, the number of offspring increases with mating success. However, for females, after a slight initial increase, usually there isn't a further increase. So this was proposed as another reason for why males should compete, because they're limited by access to mates, whereas females are popularly thought to be limited by access to resources that they can use to maximize fecundity. So the question then is, and then if we look at empirical evidence, what we find is that exaggerated traits seem to be more common among males than among females. So this is the southern elephant seal. This is the male and this is the female. The male is about a third bigger than females. This is black buck that we work on in my lab. And again, you can see the male is larger than the female and has horns. Female is hornless, is more brightly colored, and so on. This is a red-winged blackbird male, very different from the red-winged blackbird female. So empirical evidence has also kind of directed why people study sexual selection largely in males. So then the question is sexual selection not really important then in females? there has been a lot of work on sexual selection in females, but in sex role reverse species. So people have used sex role reverse species as a nice place to test the generality of ideas from sexual selection theory. So sex role reverse species are species where it's due to different reasons, either life history or ecological conditions, males are the limiting sex. So you then expect competing females and choosy males. So what you have here are this is the bronze-winged jacana, where females are larger than males and compete for males. This is the painted snipe, this is the female, this is the male, and the pipefish. Lot of work has been done on the pipefish. So just to give you a couple of examples, in the pipefish, males, usually you see pregnancy in males, and females basically just provide eggs that the male then rears. So females are limited by how many eggs the males can receive. And in the pipefish, so this is the pattern in Drosophila, where females don't see an increase in reproductive or number of offspring with the number of mates, whereas males do. In pipefish, this is reversed. So females have a steeper gradient than males do. And accordingly, you find that males are choosy and use a female ornament to choose between attractive and unattractive females, and females show a lot of competition. Similarly, in Jacana, the females are almost 50% heavier than males, have these big weapons, and again, in females, there seems to be sexual selection for large body size. So as females who are larger gain more mates than those who are smaller. So then you might wonder, is sexual selection on females limited to such rare cases of sex role reversal? Because sex role reversal is actually not that common among animal societies. And that's actually not true. So more and more in the past 10 years, we've had increasing evidence for widespread sexual selection, or rather female-female competition, ornamentation, and so on in females, and across very different taxa: mammals, fish, insect, birds, reptiles, and so on. So what I want to do is give you two examples of work that we've been doing in species that actually one would think of as having very traditional sex roles, so species that are highly polygynous. So the first example is in blackbuck antelope. So blackbuck have this very curious mating system called the lek mating system. What you see here are individual males on mating territories, on display territories. And what they do is males gather onto a large ground, defend individual territories. They don't actually have anything on them except the male. And then females visit this aggregation, move among males, mate with a male, and then leave. So this is very different from other ungulate mating systems where either males defend groups of females. They're often called female defense polygyny or harem polygyny, or cases where males defend big resource territory. So females come through looking for water or food, and then males display to those in estrus and mate with them. So that's often called resource territoriality. So this is very different and very rare. So 2%, fewer than 2% of birds, and about 0.5% of mammals are known to show this mating system. Now, one of the reasons this mating system has got a lot of attention is because there seems to be the potential for strong sexual selection on males. So mating success is skewed. In blackbuck, less than 20% of males seen on a lek during a breeding season have been observed to mate. So mating skew is very high among males, so they are competing to be those popular males. Females seem to have the potential to choose mates because they can move from territory to territory, and males cannot force them to mate. So we also went in there studying male mating strategies and how female mate choice might shape mating patterns on a lek. So I just want to show you a little video of what goes on in a lek. So that will then make it. So what you can see there, every male out there is a territorial male holding a tiny territory, sometimes not even 15 meters across. So they do a lot of these stereotypical displays. So you can see two males here doing a parallel walk, the stiff-legged walk where they hold their ears down, their tail up, and so on. Sometimes these ritualized displays are followed by ritualized fights. Sometimes it's just them engaging and moving away. And sometimes these fights can get really intense. So you have individuals, sometimes you see stab wounds on individuals, and they push each other all over the leg, get attacked by other individuals when they go onto territories of other individuals. So here is one such case. But what you'll also see are females. So these are females here. This is early morning, that's why it's so dull here. So this is a female visiting a male's leg, and the females seem to be, leg territory. Females seem to be able to move between territories without being stopped by males. And at any point during the courtship and mating, females can actually leave the male's territory. What you also see very rarely, so you never see this behavior outside the leg, you also see females doing dominance displays, actually fighting with each other, chasing each other off the leg. So you also seem to see some female competition going on. So what the part that I want to briefly talk to you about is about mating patterns on the leg. So we were interested in asking what can explain, a question? Yes, he can, yeah. I'll just come back to that, yeah. In a couple of slides, I'll come exactly to that, yeah. So we were initially, when we approached the system, we were interested in asking what can explain these mating patterns on a leg, and especially in looking at the female mate sampling process. So in a typical visit to a leg, what a female does is, she enters the leg, she visits one or more males, and she may not actually start courtship. So, before the male starts courting her, she might leave. And even once they start courtship, they have this very elaborate courtship sequence that can either be like 5 minutes or sometimes 25 minutes long. And the mating itself is like 1 second. And then she leaves the leg completely. So we didn't have to worry about her mating with multiple males. Now there are two main sets of hypotheses for, for what might explain mating patterns on legs. The dominant thought is that mating patterns can largely be understood, is male driven, and can largely be understood by males intruding and fighting with each other. But also very commonly on legs, what you see is that when a female is visiting one male's territory, you have males either from neighboring territories or more commonly from outside, chasing females, chasing them out of a territory and attempting to mate. So one hypothesis, a very popular hypothesis, is that males who are capable of keeping out intruders and retaining females long enough to mate with them are likely to be the most successful ones. So basically what drives the pattern is a male's ability to keep intruders out. Another set of hypotheses revolve around female mating preferences, because that's what initially got people interested in legs. And the idea here is that females can move, maybe use phenotypic cues or indirect cues like, females move to the central territory and mate with the male there. And if some kind of fighting ability, the ability to get a popular territory is somehow beneficial to females, you can imagine this evolving. So the second set of hypotheses revolves around female mating preferences. And according to this, the mating patterns that you see can largely be understood by how females move on the leg. So I won't go through, I just want to focus on only a small part of it. But I just want to tell you that what we did is that we followed females from when they entered to when they left, recorded every territory, and we also knew every male, and we had some measures of male phenotype like aspects of the horn, coat color, behavioral display rates, and so on. We also knew the location of the male territories. And so we asked, okay, what best explains the first territory that a female visits, the second territory that the female visits? Is it male phenotype? Is it territory location? Is it the presence of other females? Is it intruders? And so on. And we also looked at when females switch territories, does it follow a harassing event? Because that's what the harassment hypothesis would predict. Or is it just female driven? Does a female just leave without it being preceded by a harassment event? So we did all that, and in summary, at least on black buck leks, we don't find much evidence. There is a lot of harassment, but we don't find much evidence for harassment actually driving female movement patterns. What I want to focus on today is, after that we said, okay, females move among territories. On some of them, they actually start engaging in courtship. So we wanted to know what affects the probability that a courtship will successfully end in a mating, because many courtships don't. Females just leave before the mating is completed, then they go to another territory, might start off a courtship, mate there and leave. And we measured intrusion rates, tested whether the courtships where intrusion rates by males are high are the ones that are less successful. And we looked at male phenotypes, saw whether certain male phenotypic characters predict whether a courtship will successfully end in a mating. And what surprised us was that none of that was able to consistently predict whether courtship ended in mating. Rather, female aggression was the main predictor. So I've just shown this to you in a different way, this association. What we found is courtships that were unsuccessful, meaning the female left before mating, first of all, were on territories where there were many more females than courtships that successfully ended in a mating. And this was very puzzling, because usually in the lekking literature, people use the number of females on a territory as an indirect proxy of mating success. And secondly, females disrupt courtships. So the females actually attack the male and female who are engaged in that courtship. So unsuccessful courtships were disrupted much more often. So disruptions by females basically had a much bigger effect than these harassing males coming through. So I think one of you had asked, so this is something that's also been seen on one other lekking animal. So this is the topi, an African antelope, the lekking topi. And here too, they didn't actually measure matings and courtships, but here too, they found that this is a female here. So females are horned in topi. This is a female attacking a courting couple here. This is that same female engaging in a fight with the female from that courting couple. And then finally, the two actually never mated with the male. So it seems like there might be like an intermediate number of females that might be ideal for males, not, as the number of females in a male territory increases, disruptions go up. So one of you had asked, so this idea has not been tested, but the main explanation for this, so you never see females fighting otherwise, either in topi or in black buck. The only time you see it is on the lek. And one idea for this has been that even though overall the operational sex ratio is male biased, meaning there are many more males available to mate than females, if there are particular males who are popular and the receptivity time is very narrow. It's 24 hours in black buck, and even in that 24 hours, there are about 2 to 4 hours where conception is the probability is maximum. So if that is the case, and then if you miss it, you have to wait 2 more weeks. And the calving is usually timed with the rains. So you could imagine that you can, in a shorter time scale, you could actually have operational sex ratio that's biased towards females, and then have females competing and males maybe choosing which female to mate with. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So they're usually in huge groups. So in black buck, groups can be anywhere from 2 to 500, 700. But they don't land up on leks in groups. They usually arrive either individually or maybe in twos or threes. And so they're never in a group. So they seem to come and immediately after they mate, they usually run back to where their group is. So predation is pretty high in the system. Yeah? In blackbug, I mean, again, so the thing is that we used to recognize males through horn characteristics. Females are extremely difficult to recognize. What we do know is during one visit, they don't mate multiply. Unlike other lekking antelopes, so in the Uganda cob, they mate many times before leaving. But both topi and this, they don't. Yeah? No. No. So I don't know the exact numbers, but it's quite high. Quite often they don't mate, like maybe a quarter of the visits that we monitor, or yeah, 15, something like that, maybe a quarter, 20%, 25%. They seem to be, so there are, the way they move, you can assess if they're receptive or not. And males also they actually chase away females who are not receptive during this season, during the breeding season. So, but we don't know what it means. But I don't know whether, since it's 24 hours, I don't know in what stage of that they have visited or whether they make multiple visits and so on. Yes, so most females are on central territories. Why not? Yes, so you find the greatest competition for central territories. You find most females on central territories. Intrusions are also, by non-territorial males, are also highest on central territories. That's what we sort of found out. So the thing is, it's very dynamic. So even among central territories, there's a lot of variation in how many females are there at any particular time, because there isn't just a single central territory, right? So in these areas also, there's a lot of fluctuation. So I think that it depends on the time scale that you're looking at. Yes, the central territories are small. No. So this is the absolute number of females. So this is not density. This is not number per. This is actually the number of females on a male's territory, irrespective of size, because finally that's what matters, right? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe, yeah. One more question, then I'll just move on to the next. Yes, we've not analyzed it, but there could be. And you do see, so when there are 4 or 5 females, there are particular females males are courting, but I don't know because if they are the most receptive or because they're better in some other way. So again, as you'll see, we shifted from this system to a more tractable one because this is an endangered species. You can't catch them, mark them. It's good that we can't do it, but it means that the kinds of studies we can do take a certain form. Okay, just keep an eye on the time. I have 6 more minutes, is it? Yeah. Okay, so let me just quickly tell you about one other system. So just to continue, just to wrap this up, so we do seem to see kind of classical sexual selection in the sense of female-female competition for mates in this case, and in many other species, you also see male mate choice. So this example I just want, so that this has been now reported for several species. This is a very interesting study because this is a fish. What you find is that within the same breeding season, you can shift from male-male competition and female choice to female-female competition and male choice. And then this study proposes why you see this shift in the nature of sexual selection. So more and more such evidence is coming. But what I want to shift to is something a little more difficult to study, which is in many species like these, this beetle here, this parrot here, these spotted hyenas, you see weapons like these horns, you see ornaments like color here, you see aggression, fierce competition. Often they are, many of these signals are very good indicators of quality, and there is also correlation between trait and offspring survival. So for example, in spotted hyenas, the social rank of the mother, dominant females, just have better quality offspring. So this then seems to suggest that this could be sexual selection, right? Except in all these cases, there is no mate limitation. Most females or all females mate. So there doesn't seem to be any problem with access to mates. What seems to be happening is that in these cases, you have limitation in breeding opportunities. So this has led, so for example, in spotted hyenas, only the dominant females tend to breed. They kill, either they stop the subordinates from actually having pups, or they kill off the subordinate pups. So what people have suggested is that in females, maybe when we look at this intrasexual competition, we should have a broader view than just competition for mates. What we should be thinking of is competition for reproductive opportunities. So several people suggested that what we should be doing is working with a broader definition of sexual selection, focusing on reproductive opportunities, which could be mates or other resources required for breeding successfully. And this will then allow us to have, some kind of a common framework in which we can look at sexual selection on both the sexes. This has been very controversial because people have said, okay, if you keep broadening, then soon there is no sexual selection or natural selection. Everything becomes sexual selection because, then you can have competition for ecological resources. Where do you stop? However, there has been this, this theory that was suggested initially in 1983 by West Eberhard, expanded on very well, saying that, okay, it's not that all sexual selection is sexual selection. It's that wherever you have differential reproductive success due to differential success in social competition. So social interactions are needed, whatever the resource at stake. So social selection would refer to competition in which an individual must win in contests or in comparison, so choice. So both male-male or female-female competition and male choice or female choice, or comparisons with conspecific rivals in order to gain access to some resource, including under some cases mates. So that would be sexual selection. So let me just quickly tell you about our lizard system and stop there. I just want to show you a couple of videos. So we've been studying female competition in this rock lizard. This is the male and this is the female, and it's highly sexually dimorphic. Males are much larger, much more brightly colored than females, and we went into the system thinking we are going to study sexual selection in males, including sexual selection and its effects on traits like body size, displays, animal personality and all that. And so since 2009, we've been working in this study area in southern Andhra Pradesh, and we catch individuals, mark them and follow them till they die. So males, we first started looking at males, and males are very interesting. They show all kinds of visual signals, they do all kinds of behavioral signals and so on. Females are very inconspicuous and we paid no attention to them initially. But then some students, so this was work conducted by a student called Shrikant, and then some other students, so Devika, started noticing that these are females, that females also do show some signaling even though it's inconspicuous. So this is a female showing some color patterns. This is her normal coloration, and this is a female showing different behavioral displays. So I'll just show you a couple of short videos about what females do. So this is a female, doing different behavioral displays, and very occasionally, you can also see them fight. So here are two females. I don't know if you can see the two females fighting. So this has got us thinking about competition in females and the form that it should take. One thing that, this is still work in progress. One thing that we've been thinking about is that the form of competition might actually be very different in females. And the reason, can I just take a couple more minutes? Yeah, okay. Yeah. If you don't mind. Okay. So we've been thinking that if you think of the costs and benefits to traits involved in competition, say aggression, the payoffs might be quite different in females. So in this system, for example, females mate, and then you have a gestation time, where eggs are developing, then they lay eggs, and then they again have a second or a third round of laying eggs. Now imagine that you compete strongly for some resource. That competition won't yield immediate benefits. Unlike in the case of males, where because females are clustered in space and time, even say a brief period in which you compete strongly, you could actually mate with a lot of females, and that sperm is stored in this species. So even after you die, you can still father offspring. So the benefits in females may not be immediate, unlike in males in this system. And similarly, the costs. So, we've seen injured males successfully mate. But if a female gets injured, just successful mating is not enough. She has actually got to survive to reproduce, to actually lay eggs, and do that multiple times. And being injured might mean you don't even survive to lay eggs, or even if you do survive, you're not good at gaining resources, building good eggs, and so on. So because the costs and benefits for females might just be taking place along a different, the way they act might be quite different. We wanted to study what kind of a competition strategy should females adopt, and broadly we thought that females should avoid conspicuous signals and aggression, and maybe only bring them up when the threat is extremely high. So I won't go into the details of these experiments. I just want to say that the approach, I don't know what happened here, but the approach we've been using is to do these experiments in the field. So what Devika has been doing is taking models to simulate levels of threat and put them in different parts of a female's territory to simulate different levels of threat, parts that are attractive versus parts that are not so attractive, and then looking at how females respond. In parallel, she's also been doing similar experiments with males, she and some other students. So just to tell you just a little bit, is that what we find is that we saw maybe, in regular interactions, you rarely see aggression. But here's an example of what happens when you put a model. So this is a model here. This is a female. And she's got a gape and this throat puff. So she's displaying and also attacking. So what we find is that aggression, sorry, go ahead. No male was around. So what we tried to do, because we've not yet gone to that series of experiments, is what we've tried to do is to choose, specifically do these experiments only when a male is not around. And similarly for the male side of experiments, do it when the female is not around. But it would be interesting to see what happens when you do have an audience, either a male or a female audience. So, female aggression is extremely rare. It's like 1 out of, seen once in something like, I don't know how many hours of observations. But when you do these, this is in the background level of baseline behavior. But when you do these experiments, about 50% of the trials, so out of 22 trials, I think in 12 or 13 of them, females actually show aggression. And similarly, their signaling also goes up. So this is their baseline level of signaling, and this is under high threat. So they are able to escalate their signaling a fair bit. So right now what we are, I don't know why I keep walking there. So what we are doing now, what Devika is doing now, is trying to figure out, you have this repertoire of behavioral and visual signals. What do females choose and put together? What do males choose and put together? How do they escalate it depending on different threat levels? And why do we see this kind of different use of signals and aggression in males versus females? So that's the direction we are going in now. So let me stop here and just quickly summarize. So if we think about this field of sexual selection in females and where we stand, there is a lot of evidence now for reproductive competition in females, all the way from small behavioral displays like a female displacing another female, to attacks, to serious frequent infanticide, which can dramatically have negative fitness consequences for females. So this is widespread. However, it seems like this intrasexual competition may not be, in some cases they may be for mates, but they may be for not just for mates, but for also reproductive, larger breeding opportunities, or even resources affecting offspring reproductive value. More and more people are suggesting that the traits that evolve under such intrasexual competition in females may be quite different from that in males. In many ecological situations, we might expect more nuanced behaviors, or strategies like building coalitions, or resolving things through a dominance hierarchy or through territoriality, rather than in contests and aggression. So it might be different, but still a lot of work needs to be done. And also, we need a larger framework for studying evolutionary causes and consequences. Even studying what fitness component to measure. Sexual selection in males has really focused on looking at fertilizations and how that is distributed among males and correlated with phenotype and so on. Here we have to think about not just fertilizations, but also different aspects of offspring production, survival, and reproductive value. So a lot of people and resources went into the work that I presented here. I'd like to acknowledge them and thank you. And sorry, I've gone way over time.